Zevahim Daf continuing on Kofi Bet on Mood Bet. 14 lines down, we are still in the middle of the Mishnah, and we're going to be for a little while. Ma'ale mi besar hatar. Someone offers a piece of meat from a korban hatat. Mi besar asham, or when it was an asham. Mi have an asham. Mi besar kochim or kochim, sakalim or kochikalim or kalim. Omotar omer, remaining part of the omer korban, and besar shter lechem, or the two loaves brought from Shavuot. Or the remainder parts of the korban menchat. We pour oil onto korban menacha. A potato, someone breaks it into pieces. Someone is mixing the oil with the flour. Someone salting the korban. And then if someone waving it. Magish, bringing it to the mizbeach. Someone saying the lachem for the shulchan. And someone's preparing the lamps of the menorah. Someone's referring the flour from the korban menacha. Someone's receiving the blood. He did any of these things after the bit of patur. Then chayavin alav, you're not chayav karet for any of these things. Lo mishum zerod, not if you were a non-kohen. Lo mishum tumah, not if you were tameh. Lo mishum mechasar b'gdir, not if you were not wearing the kohen's garments. Lo mishum rachutz tam, not also if you did not wash your hands and feet correctly. Ad shelo hukam mishkan. Now, until the mishkan was built, hayu abamot mutarot, you were able to use private bamot, private mizbeachs. The avodah was done by firstborn sons. Once the Mishkan was built, and the Esrog Bamot became Asur, the avodah was done by Kohanim. Koshei Koshim and the Koshei were only eaten within the curtains of the Hatzer. The Koshei Kalim, the Kalim were eaten throughout Bnei Israel. Once Bnei Israel came to Gilgal, which is the next part where they are, Bamot became Mutar again. Koshei Koshim were eaten within the curtains. The Koshei Kalim B'chamakom and Kalim anywhere. Baal the Shiloh, when they came to Shiloh. So after the 14 years of Bnei Israel conquering Eretz Israel, it was the Gilgal, they now brought it to Shiloh. It was there for 369 years. Nesrub it became Asur again, the private Mizbeach. There was no roof at the Mishkan. It was a stone house and structure. And it was a cloth canopy on top, like a tent. And that's where it was resting. The again were eaten within the curtains. And Kalim and Maaseh Sheni were anybody who were able to see Shiloh. They came to Nov and Givon. And then the Bamot became Mutar again. Right? So what happened? The Mishkan, the Aron was stolen by the Pelishtim. And when that happened, and they told it, for some reason, someone decided to bring it into the war. The Aron, they told help them, they lost. Plishtim stole the Aron. They told the Kohen Gadol Eliah Kohen of what happened. He fell off his chair and he died. That from then on, Shiloh fell apart and they moved to Nov and Givon. Kosher Kashim Nechlin to claim the Kosher Kashim were even within the curtains. Kosher Kalim L'chal Yisrael and Kalim anywhere in Bnei Yisrael. Baruch came to Shalom Yisrael Abamot. What became Asur? And Hittai, they never again was high. The Haitan Halam in Eretz Yisrael, Yerushalayim was the inheritance of the Torah. Kosher Kashim Nechlin to Kalim, Kosher Kashim ends within. Chaser, Kosher Kalim Maaseh Sheni Latim Ma'ama, and Kalim Maaseh Sheni within Yerushalayim. All korbanot that were made kadosh when you were not allowed to use the bama. Then you offered it outside when you were not allowed to use the bama still. Let's say you made a kadosh when you were allowed to. Then you offered it when you were not allowed to. You did it outside. Again, no karet this time. If you made a kadosh when you were not allowed to, you made it, you brought it when you were allowed to. There's no alot haseh. The following korbanot may be brought in must be brought in the mishkan. Korbanot that were specifically made for the mishkan. Korbanot b'sibur, community sacrifices. They have to be offered at the mishkan only. The private korbanot can be offered at the private bama. Also the private korban that was made hekdesh for the mishkan. They could use the mishkan entering the mishkan. The patur. Be brought to the bama. It is patur. Very nice said. What were the actual differences between the private bama and the main bama, the main community one? Smicha. Leaning on the animal, you don't have to do it privately. Ushat safon, you don't have to store it on the north side of the mizbeach. Matan seiv, you don't have to put the blood on your mizbeach. Utim you don't have to wave it. V'hagashan, you have to bring it near the korban mincha to the mizbeach. It says also, and mincha there is no mincha. The requirement the Kohanim have to wear, you need a Kohen's outfit, with the sharet or the Kohen's vest, clothing, a sharet or a holy vessel, or to make sure that you cook it in the correct way, or to make sure you put the blood on the top or bottom, washing hands and feet. That is all required by the main one, but not the private. But the fact that you have to do it at the right time, like Bikul, we're not going people on the tower, we're not eating it too late, but after we come into me, Shavim they apply to both. Mahutz Megita, I mentioned the beginning of the Mishnah like 2 days ago, yesterday, that if you burn the paraduma outside the pit, after the place that they were already inspected to make sure there's no tumah there. Mara the British says, but I thought I just always automatically considered pre-checked. They slaughtered it inside the walls of Yerushalayim. Okay, why don't you establish the case where it's not outside of Yerushalayim? Not opposite the Beit HaMikdash entrance. He said, not opposite the entrance. Slaughter and sprinkle. Like sprinkling to be opposite the Beit HaMikdash entrance. After that, that's also the slaughtering. Maybe you don't make the Hekesh that way. But it also says, Yochanan Pislat, Yochanan says Pasul, if you don't do it, Kineged Padah. Which Hafizah, Kishmarsh Kisharat. Michutz Machane, which Pasuk says you should slaughter. But Wanami also says, Serefa, Shelo, Kineged Padah, if you burn the Paradama not next to the Beit HaMikdash entrance, Yochanan Pislat, Reshaya Markishira, Yochanan Pasul, Serafizah. He learns the fact that it says burning and sprinkling. But Yasham says, okay, Al Pirshaha Yisrof, which he learns Makom Sheporeshet Limitar Shamtia Sedepata. You could burn it even when wherever you kill it. So we see Rabbi Yochanan holds that the cow has to be slaughtered next to the entrance. So why can't you just tell the Mishnah's case of outside, meaning that it was next to the entrance? The Gemara says Amri. Let me buy a kamar. He was giving a not only this, but even that type of answer. Let me buy a chutzma. You don't have to tell me if it's sorted outside the wall. Did a hakeh where it's farther away, it's still kasher, it's still pasul. But even inside the wall, the karaveh is closer. The imam kasher eating is kasher, kamash from there for everything. It's not. Maramor says, local Eretz Sabaduka, he mentioned the Eretz Yisrael is pre-inspected. But my was not holding based off more Savar. Resh Lakish holds, you read my bull, Eretz Yisrael, he holds. Resh Lakish says that you know why Eretz Yisrael is not Chazakav Tehora? Is because he holds that the Mabul went into Eretz Yisrael by Noach, and there could be corpses there. More Savar, Rabbi Yochanan holds, no water went there. They both learned their opinion, both ways, from the same pasuk. Ben Adam pasuk says, man, Emor la, say to Eretz Yisrael, At Eretz lo mitorahi. You are not a land that's tahor, lo gushma v'im za'am. It is not rain the day of fury. Yochanan learned that pasuk teach you, At muhu g'mitmahi kara. And Hashem was asking rhetorically, Eretz Yisrael milo mitorat, aren't you not already tahor? No rain landed on you in the fury of Mabul. Rish Lakish Savar, he says, no. Kim Bash plain meaning of the Pasuk. Yes, rain landed, and therefore you're not Tahar. It's a question. There were courtyards in Yerushalayim, they were built on rock. But underneath them was a hole, like a clear. We cave them because we don't want there to be a grave deep inside. So they used to clear out the space. To bring pregnant women, they give birth there. They raise their children there to make sure they're in a state of tahara for the paraduma. And they bring oxen, on top of them doors. The children will sit on top of the doors to avoid getting tmeh. They carry cups of stone. They would ride down to the shloach to fill up the water. Right, that way they would be maintaining towers. So we see from here that the fact they had to do this shows you that it's not hard. That was just they were doing more stricter than they had to, but it still doesn't mean it's kasher. One time they found human bones in the chamber by the woodshed. They said, you know what, maybe Yerushalayim will have tumah. He says, 1 second. It would be a tremendous embarrassment. We should make the father, our forefathers land tameh. Where are the dead of the flood? Where are the dead of Nebuchadnezzar? Meaning, if there's cause and history of blood and bones being everywhere, but not here. And that's the case. Since he said this, since he healed, there was no blood bodies by from the Mabul by us. The Gemara says, you just said, how do we get what do you mean? How is it possible that the people who were killed in Abu Hananta were not in Eretz Israel? They were literally killed in Eretz Israel. Must be must be that they were there, but they cleared them away. The flood. After Nabu, they cleared the bodies. They cleared it away. I think they cleared it away, so it wasn't any difference if it was there in the first place. There's no more. Where it says, the even line can clear it still over. No, maybe they cleared it from but not the whole Eretz Israel. That's why if you're doing outside Yerushalayim, you have to check. Eked Amris people say to Rish Lakish Rahman, Ayem et Maboya, Tamil Hazard, mean my love, the Mahane Havu. Sounds like they were already there. Hananami Havu, and therefore they were both there, the flat as well. The area, that's not a proof. Hakita. Meaning, maybe Ben Yochanan said they cleared it away, but in the flood, there was never there in the first place. Etve, Mikola Sheba Harava Metu. That's what says everybody in the dry land died to the Mabul. Bisham, the Mason the coin, I said, Tamina Yarad Mabul, that it's still the flood went there. Mishum Hachimetu, that's why everybody died. According to you, why would they die in the flood? Mishum Havla, because of the hot heat of the water. It says, they were boiled, they sinned with boiling liquid, Yani Zera, and therefore they're punished with boiling water. Okay, either middle version. It's going to be because that's why I say the pasuk. That's why I say the Mabul did not go to Israel. That's why Israel was dry. The Chab, according to my Harava, wasn't mean dry if everything was washed. Harava Shahitam I mean it was dry from previously. But my why is it called dry? It means only the land creatures died, not the fish. Neymar presumes me. That makes the point means that the flood did not go to Israel. That's how we could say that the Re'em survived. The Re'em is referring to a mythical creature that was absolutely tremendous, like taller than mountains. So he says, okay, that's how the Re'em can survive. It was stayed in Israel. And the Mandama according to me, that the water went there. How did the Re'em survive? Rabbi and I, Goriot they brought the young Re'em babies. That's how it fit into the Tiban. That's how it survived. The Gemara says, one second. Amar Bar Rahana, الذي حزل أرز الله درema بعد يوم I went saw a baby Re'em 1 day old. بهذا كان تبور the size of Mount Tabor. بها تبور كما عبيان how tall Mount Tabor 40 parsecs 40% high. مشكلة سفارة 3 parsecs in length of his neck was 3 parsecs old. مربعاتا دريشة parsecs لفالغا and the head's resting place was a parsa and a half. Rama Kava Vesakran then when it relieved itself, it was able to block and dam the water of the Yarden. So we see even the baby Re'em cannot fit in the Aron, in the Teva. Where it says Amar B'Yochanan, Rosho Hichnisul Teva. It's true, he just stuck his head into the Teva. One second. The head needed a parsa and a half to rest. How would that fit? The Gemara says no. The tip of his nose is stuck into the Teva. You just said that Israel did not have the flood. Or it says the British Shakish Kamar, he's like, yes. I don't think it went in, but according to your opinion, you could say he stuck his head in. Gemara says, Vaha Kasag Teva, but one second, the Teva was moving. How would you keep its head in all times? Gemara says, Amar Shakish, Karunav Kashuba Teva, they tied the horn to the Teva to keep the nose from slipping out. Amar Chizda, Anchedo Mabo, Barothin Kaklo, Barothin Midu, but they said it was boiling, so it would have killed it. Gemara says, with the Mech, according to Teva Havasagi, how did the Teva itself not melt from the water? Additionally, how did the oak survive? It must be that there was a miracle that was the water next to the Teva were cooled off. That's how the Re'em survived, that's how Og survived, and that's how the Teva survived. According to him, it says that the water went to Israel, but we know the dead bodies did not remain there. Why was the Babel named the deep? Because all the dead of the flood washed out there. Says, why was Babel called Shinar? Because all the dead of the flood also were dumped there. So we see that you don't need to check Eretz Israel. The Gemara says, yes, even though most landed by Babel, some of them might have gotten stuck in Eretz Israel. The Gemara says, Amar Bi'abayu. Why is Babel called Shinar? Because it loosens those who are wealthy. It causes them to lose their wealth because they don't give tzedakah. We see people who are wealthy in Babel. Where it says, They don't have their wealth for 3 generations. Rabbi Ami, Kol Achel Me'afresh Babel, what eats dust of Babel, Kilu Achel B'Sarav is eating as if he's eating the body of his ancestors because they decompose into the ground of Babel. Where it says, Kol Achel Me'afresh Babel, Kilu Achel B'Sarav Vatav, Yeshmim, Kilu Achel Shechim is also considered like eating bugs because um, they also died and were deposited by the Bavel after the Mabul.